is. Let me bring up the one that I know everybody was flipping out for. I still think it's an amazing thing. Like, it's 50-50 of people who are intelligent, who I've known are good faith, reasonable people who are disagreeing over the panic to be placed in this. So the news of the week was that this Department of Defense directive issued a revised directive, revised as of September of this year, which apparently, that's not the right part of it. It was this one, which apparently adds this. It says the Secretary of Defense may approve of any type of requested permissible assistance described in paragraph 3.2, yada, yada, yada. The decision to approve requests for these types of permissible assistance described in paragraph 3.2 to law enforcement agencies and other civil authorities are reserved to the Secretary of Defense. Okay. And then it says it's adding assistance in responding with assets with potential for lethality or any situation in which it is reasonably foreseeable that providing the requested assistance may involve the use of force that is likely to result in lethal force, including death or serious bodily injury. And this was in the broader context of the military responding to domestic upheaval disturbances. So, like, I tried to make sense of it. I don't think I'm going to be able to. What is the context in which this directive is being issued? Who's it being issued to? And what new powers does it give them over powers that they already had?
It doesn't give any new powers, and in fact limits existing powers. So this particular directive derives back from 2007, and it was dealing with the implications of the Patriot Act spying on Americans. And it was meant to restrict the activities that could lead to spying on Americans by various intelligence assets at various federal agencies. It was revised by Barack Obama in 2016 and revised now a third time by President Biden in 2024 in September. What this provision says is that if an intelligence asset from any of the federal government is requested to assist with a local or state investigation or case in any manner, and that federal agent has the authority and the means already of engaging in lethal force, that federal agent, he or she, is not allowed to go to the local or work with the local or state agency unless the Secretary of Defense approves it. It's the Biden administration not wanting to get implicated in an agent doing something in a SWAT team raid or one of these cooperating cases where especially if they come from the intelligence apparatus in some capacity. So I don't know what triggered this particular concern within the Biden administration. Maybe there's some issue. Maybe there's some blowback from some SWAT raids that have happened over the past 6 months, where there probably were intelligence sources that are government or considered intelligence sources. That's a broader capacity than just the CIA and the NSA. And like in the case of the gentleman who was shot and killed, basically.
Facebook posts.
Yeah, exactly. One guy over Facebook post, another guy in another situation with I think in Arkansas. So that may have precipitated this. But first of all, a directive cannot create new law or authority. That doesn't exist. A directive is interpreting existing law. So you can't the president can't, through a declaration, say, hereby I declare a new law. That's the legislative branch of government. And the executive branch can only do it to the degree certain powers have been delegated to them. If people read the entire document, which almost all the people jumping to this conclusion have not read the history of the document and haven't read the whole document. And so they're jumping to the wrong conclusions. And honestly, it's a complete red herring and a distraction. I get, Ron Paul doesn't like the national security apparatus being involved at all in anything concerning Americans. And I share his concerns in that respect. But this was a misunderstanding of this provision. So again, you look at it, it's not giving anybody new authority. It's actually limiting the authority. It's saying if you're an intelligence asset, you cannot work with local or state government on anything if you have lethal force, because your right or authority to use it might be brought in by the local and state authority. That's how that happens. Because it will then blow back on us if it goes AWOL, unless the Secretary of Defense personally authorizes and approves it. It's control. It's making sure intelligence assets aren't just working with local and state governments on a regular routine whenever they want to, whatever their motivation was. I get people's skepticism, the Biden administration and so forth, but this is some of the legal interpretation was just really bad that was out there. And it was unfortunate, but the Defense Department memo does not give new authority for the Biden administration to go murder you. This is not the case.
Oh, good enough. I mean, I'm reading that apparently Robert Gouveia disagrees, and I'll go listen.
I haven't heard or seen what he said, but usually he just covers it briefly. To my knowledge, he hasn't done like a deep dive on this.
No, topic. and I actually haven't heard what Gouveia had to say about it either. I'll go listen. But
a lot of people just come to they just rush to conclusions because they have this deep skepticism, understandable skepticism of the Biden administration. But it reminds me a lot of the WHO treaty, where everybody was running around saying this will magically govern us tomorrow without going through Congress. That the president can just unilaterally declare things that the Constitution has long prohibited him from doing. I mean, it's like, no. I mean, if you have a president that just wants to violate the law, that can always happen.
Well, but
you can't create new law by a Defense Department directive. And what these directives do is channel in authority. And you really dig into this. This is a limitation on authority, limitation on action. That's probably a good one, frankly, because otherwise these officers and agents are happy to be gung ho and saddle up on SWAT raids that they shouldn't probably be on. If there's someone that is authorized within the federal government to have the authority to use lethal force, but when they use it with these state and local because that's what this whole paragraph is talking about, state and local investigations, that legal authority will come from the state and local authority, that they're kind of deputizing the federal officer. The feds don't want to be implicated in that for whatever reason, maybe good reasons, maybe bad reasons. But it's not an extension or expansion to mass murder you.
There's a bunch of trolls in the chat, which is always a good sign. Okay, fantastic. So, I mean,
people want to believe dumb stuff. Well, there's people running around saying the elections are all going to be stolen. You're wasting your time. And what they're not admitting is their real intention is they're complicit with the bad actors. Because why would somebody go around telling you that the election is guaranteed to be stolen? What's their intent? What action do they want you to take? They want you to not vote, not participate, not care, not be engaged. In other words, they're working for the other side that they claim to be working against. And they make stuff up. I mean, there's people that, for example, I've been a big critic of Dominion machines and machines in general. Ask a lot of these people that claim that Dominion machines will run the entire election. How many counties are Dominion machines even located in America? Hint, about 90% of counties, they're not even located in. So how are they going to manipulate the vote in 90% of the counties where they're not located in? These people don't have answers. They buy red herrings and they run off on wild goose chases. I mean, there's people running around saying that, there's millions of illegals on the voting rolls, and that's been proven. No, it hasn't. That hasn't been proved. There's things to worry about in the election, a whole bunch of them, but these are not the ones to be worried about. And people keep chasing red herrings and black pill doomers. And what they're really doing is they're helping the other side. And I don't think they're in good faith anymore. Some of them are just grifters. Like, these people will accuse me of being a grifter. It's confession through projection. These people are grifters. They're telling you they're grifters. If they're accusing me and Richard Barris of being a grifter, they're telling you that they are the grifter, that they are the liar, that they are the fraudster. And quit buying every doomer thing that comes down the pipeline. Be concerned, be conscientious, be proactive, but don't buy into every doomer black pill that somebody tries to feed you.
No, and when I read it, like the analogy I had, or at least my experience was in Quebec, people suddenly became aware of a law that said that you could force vaccinate a general population. And everyone's like, look at they just passed this in the dead of the night. Nobody even knew. And I'm like, that law had been on the books for 2 decades. And that's also what should be shocking about it. You know, I was going back and reading. First, it didn't strike me as the government needing any authorization to use lethal force on Americans. They've done it repeatedly. And so when I went to look at that, and the wording seemed to be consistent with prior directives that had existed for a little while, I'm like, I thought it was a bit of a red herring.
There's beginning provisions that say it's still limited by all other statutory and constitutional restrictions and da 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 da. So I mean, there's reasons to wonder why they're revising these things, And I think I think that's where the skepticism should have been directed. Why are they revising? What's their goal and objective? But the goal wasn't to have mass execution of Americans with secret authorization overnight.
No, but you have that
law.
You have the revision in conjunction with the likes of Ratskin, Jamie Raskin saying we're going to have civil war conditions. Hypothetically, if you knew that that's what they wanted to do, let's just say you want to connect that.
But this is a restriction.
Yeah,
this
but it's a restriction.
It harder for people to get approval and authorization to do things. That's what this does. This says now you can't do it on your own local agency. You can't local office. You got to go all the way up to the Secretary of Defense and get his direct approval. So this is this is because they don't like people engaging in things for whatever reason they're uncomfortable with. Now, maybe the motivation is people who are doing conscientious work, white hat work with local agencies exposing true corruption. Maybe that's their goal, is to preclude them from helping in those cases. Or maybe it's they just don't like the blowback for people going AWOL. Whatever their motivation, this was a limitation on power, not an extension or expansion of.